Hi, hello, I'm Jo from Flo's Flower Box, and this is the Christmas Wreath Workshop at Home Flower Box tutorial. We're going to do this in 3 steps, and if you have been to my workshop before or not, that's generally how I do it. It's not something I go on about, it's just easier, I think, to do it in steps, and the tutorial hopefully will throw light on that. So, you've received your flower box, thank you so much for ordering. I've taken out a few of my bits and pieces. I'm going to talk you through a few things. By all means, lay it all out and get yourself ready. So, what I would always say, there's only probably one piece of equipment you definitely need, and that's a strong pair of scissors. And generally, whatever surface you're going to create the wreath on, then make sure it's nice and protected, because the moss frame will be damp, and that's because it's going to feed your foliage for the next however many weeks. However, we thought about that at Flo's Flower Box, and the packaging also doubles up as a bit like a placemat, so maybe not so much the tissue paper, but definitely the brown paper that kind of covers the top part of your foliage section in your workshop box. You can pop that down on the table. I'm going to do that today because I beautified my workspace rather than being more practical. So you can lay that out, and what I'm going to do is lay out my foliage. So today we've got a selection. We've got some buried ivy, we have got the eucalyptus, and we also have the staple item of spruce. And it will be a mixture of different types of spruce. So they'll all be cut to size as well, because we've prepared it for you, ready to go. Normally, if you've got Christmas tree branches, and again, if you've got a real Christmas tree and you want to add more foliage to your wreath, you can go and cut off a couple of the bottom branches, but keep them, you know, small. Normally I say hand size, so palm of your hand, normally that's about the right size. This is the deck the halls that I'm demonstrating today, but essentially the theory behind it is exactly the same. It's just the kind of decorations that are slightly different. So we've got some bracken, a little bit more eucalyptus. With this one there's a bit of bay. I'm running out of space now, I've beautified too much. Just move it that way. I've got some berries and a little bit of pine. So what you'll see is a real selection of foliage here. And again, it's how you work, so if you want to just bundle it all on the table, so be it, but it's just a bit easier to separate it. It makes it a bit easier to kind of assemble it at the start. So at the bottom of your box is your 12-inch moss-bound frame. Sorry, that's some of the foliage falling off. So you'll see that the flat section at the back is the back. That is the bit that will sit against your door and will protect this at the very end in one of the last stages. So the bit that we're going to be working on is the raised section, so the section that is raised at the top, and I've put on all of them twine. If you know for any reason that you're not going to need this, i.e. you're going to use a hook already over your door and it's fail-proof, you've used it before, then by all means remove this, it doesn't need to be there. However, if you're not sure how you're going to hang it lengthwise, keep it on, because you can actually just snip it off really easy at the end, and you can work over it, so it doesn't matter if the foliage sits across it, and you can shorten the length. It's not going to bother you at all. Anyway, so stage 1 is once you've got it all laid out and all ready to go, you will find in your bag of wires and pins a reel of wire. It's this reel wire that you're going to need to attach all your foliage to your wreath. Now what we do normally is just take a little bit of the reel wire off, just a length's worth, because we're going to attach it to the back of the frame. So this is where you turn the frame on top of itself. So now you want the flat area, you want the flat back area. I've realised I've put all this foliage in, you might not actually be able to see it. So I'm just going to move my spruce back out of the way. This was just to demonstrate to you what we've got in the box. So, reel wire. You will see on the back of the frame areas of the frame that are exposed. It is one of these areas we want to get to, because we want to tuck this wire into the frame and we want to tie it on essentially. So if you go through like you're sewing. I don't sew, I'm not a very good sewer. But this I can do. Go around a couple of times around the wire frame. Don't worry, the moss may come away a little bit. There's plenty of moss in there. What you can do is just tie it with a knot around the frame so it's properly on that wire. And then the end, you don't need your scissors for this, the end of the wire, the little bit, you just tuck it into the wreath. Because you're not going to see the back, you're not going to see any of that. And you are on nice and strong. So, you can turn it over, ready to get going. So it should look like this, it should hang. And what I always do is I start with it at the top. So we're at the top. Don't worry about your twine. So I'm at the top, I've got everything ready. Now I need to create bundles, and it's bundles of foliage that we are going to create to fix onto this moss frame. And we're going to work the whole way around the circle until obviously we get back to where we started. And by doing that, and by using a selection of foliage, we're going to build depth and texture, and that is what gives the wreath its character, that's what gives it its identity, and that's what makes each wreath different from the next, is that I would bundle my foliage different to the next person, they would be bundling different to that next person, and it can be groupings of foliage. Normally around the wreath frame it's about 12 bundles, roughly, give or take. So you could say every other has eucalyptus in, every third one has a little bit of pine, and so on and so forth, and every one of course has spruce. It's up to you, it really is, and I think that's the exciting part of it, that's what makes it individual. So I'm going to start with some spruce. The idea is you create a bundle big enough, palm of the hand, so big enough and wide enough for the palm of the hand, you're kind of making a fan shape. So always use your bigger, denser foliage at the back and just build up. So we've got some lovely berries on maybe. And again, we're not being precious about it. If you find that you're bundling together and the stems are longer, you can just chop so they all create the same length. Especially right here, the eucalyptus feels a bit big, so that's going to just get in your way. Again, just cut. And again, you don't need to go too mad. Four or five bits in a bundle should be fine. I'm going to put a bit of bracken in. So that's my first bundle. And I'm following the circle on the wreath, basically. So, put your first bundle on in line with your wire, and you want to bring your wire over. And as you bring your wire over, you can hold it and pull. So you're tightening the foliage bundle. And a couple of wraps around should be enough. Pull it on your face there. So that's your first one. And then we just continue. So we're just going to continue bundling up our foliage, changing it up as we go. Hopefully, and it's by no means, we're not cheating, but you're lucky in these boxes that we've cut them mainly to palm size. So when you start layering, we're now going to layer. You'll have an area here where you've put your bundle on and you've got your wires and then an extra of stems. We're working backwards, we're going to cover with the next bundle. So the next bundle sits on top of just the edge of here, not right on top here, you're working backwards. And each bundle you want to be visible. Essentially when it's all done, you won't even know it's bundled, it'll just look like one whole wreath. But here we're going to sit the next bundle where these wires are. So just on top here, and again, the circle, work our way around the circle. And move your wire reel, it doesn't matter, you're not going to see the behind bit. That's not the bit you're decorating, in fact we're going to cover it at the end with a protector for your door. So again, every time I take it round I just pull nicely. And once it's in, you can rearrange it a little bit. It's quite stiff in, so you can kind of pull to suit. You can look, you can see if it's covering, and keep going. And then at this point, I would turn my wreath round so that the top is always at the top and I can see it. Start a little bit differently this time. I might have some bay. I'm not doing this in any real order. I'm just picking picking up a whole load of foliage that I really like, and just hoping and just knowing that the textures work really nicely together. Let's put some berries in now. The beauty of the moss frame is that it arrives and it's already damp and moist, which therefore means it's feeding your foliage. And this time of year, this time of year, it will continue to be like that when it's outside because of the weather. So we can, because it's moist, we can, and some of these stems are quite tough, they're quite hardy. If we have any gaps after we've gone the whole way around with a real wire, we can actually poke a few bits in to fill. I'll show you that at the end. So again, on the top, we're following round. And it's really nice to watch how the textures start to come together. And like I say, please don't worry that you've forgotten, you know, or I really wanted a piece of eucalyptus there and I forgot to add a piece in. There are ways and ways of doing it. And hopefully we'll be able to show you. Buried ivy is beautiful at the moment. It doesn't all have to be buried ivy, that is. The actual ivy foliage is beautiful in itself. I really like ivy, and we use it a lot in floristry throughout the entire year. We don't just use it at Christmas, although at Christmas it's at its best. So again, just keep following around. I'm going to show you what it's starting to look like in a minute. I'm going to lift it up. Bring your real wire around. Kind of, you're taking your wire to you basically, moving it to fit. What I might do is I might do one more bunch. I want to put some more berries in, and then I'll show you what the stage we're getting to. So I'm a big fan of greenery, big fan of texture, big fan of variety. I like mixing it up. And the rules in floristry, pretty much, that, mix it up, see what goes. So, keep working my circle. And you can, once you're attaching it, so here, I haven't bunched it particularly well, as in I've bunched it, but the stems have all just gone a bit wayward. What I can do is, if they're going to bother me, is I can cut them just so they're a bit neater. But normally in floristry there are lots of ways that we try to say to you to protect the shelf life of flowers is always to make sure you strip the stems down, on the roots not so much, because you're not going to see them. So you can see now that this is coming together. You can see some areas. And you can look at it, and see what you're thinking, see what you're creating, but we're nearly halfway there. So here, for example, I'm looking and thinking, oh, I'm not sure if there's a gap. Don't look at it almost until the end, because we've got all these decorations to put on it. And actually, I've said this before to people in workshops, until you can look at it as an entirety and when it's finished, you're not going to know. If you want to A, fill the space with more foliage, because that's the look you're going for, or B, that's become a natural home for one of your larger decorations, like your pine cones, your lotus seed heads that are in Silent Night, or even one of the baubles. Sometimes those little gaps that we start to worry about when we're watching something come together isn't worth worrying about at all. And that's why often this first stage is pretty much just everyone just gets stuck in and gets on with it. So I'm going to continue making this up for you now, and then we will see it come together at the very end. So this is where normally everyone has a lovely natter, got a lovely drink going, and people generally are starting to think about, oh, how would I decorate it? What would I put on? So